I'd like to thank everyone for rearranging your schedule to accommodate a special meeting, moving our April meeting up to March to help the staff get done with some important work. Ray's taken attendance, and we are now at the public comment period. I don't think we have any public comment.
Yeah, no, we didn't receive any requests either.
Okay, we're now on to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes, the financial report, and the staff report. Are there any items that any of the commissioners would like to take off for further discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Thank you, Bob. Second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are now on to our regular agenda. And first off is the adoption of the McLean County Regional Recovery Plan. Ray, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to thank the Planning Commission. If you recall, back in September of 2023, you approved a contract for us to retain a consultant to do this work for the regional housing recovery plan. And so 7 months of intensive work later, here before you is the final draft of the plan, and it's up for your consideration of adoption this afternoon. And I want to thank a number of people really to make this plan or draft plan happen to this point. I want to first thank the steering committee. There are 16 members representing different organizations, different sectors of the housing industry, if you will. And also, we have some of them here with us in person, as well as on the screen joining us virtually. I would want to recognize Kathleen Lorenz, in case she was here giving a presentation a few months back on behalf of the Housing Coalition. Also on the screen, we have Diane Cote. She's with the Mid-Illinois Realtors Association. And then I'm trying to see from really a distance, like 20 feet, 30 feet away. I have Laura Passati. And she is with Thrive Housing, who's like a nonprofit, but she also is with the Landlord Association. I have Jennifer Tony with the Town of Normal, and she's on the grant on community development, working closely with us on different fronts. And I have Kevin McCall, and he is with the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. And as you recall, housing is a major or one of the major components of the McLean County Mental Health Action Plan. And I have, let's see, if I miss anybody.
From TPLA.
Yes. So in addition to the steering committee members who work really diligently, we have had like typically monthly meetings, and then this last month we have like 2-3 meetings, just the necessity. Working with the steering committee and staff, MCRPC staff is the consultant team from TPMA. So we have a number of members of the consultant teams here. Zach, Aaron, want to wave if you want to. And they will be presenting shortly about the plan highlights. And of course, I will be remiss if I don't thank the committee members, the general public, stakeholders from the community, because this is a regional plan. And we have, as you recall, when Mark of our staff present the highlights about the public forum, by standing room only, we have commission members who attended. We have had stakeholder workshops, surveys that we received about 1,200 responses, and some of those are from outside of Bloomington normal area. And so it's a lot of effort, committee efforts, the public engagement, your advisement also along. So we've been trying to keep the Regional Planning Commission apprised along the way. And of course, the steering committee with all the work that TPMA, the consultants have put in, really work well with the staff, given it's a really tight time frame because of the grant, by the state, and we're grateful for the grant too. And we recognize this is to staff is the beginning of really the work, even with your adoption, if you would today. So with that said, I'm going to defer to TPMA for a presentation. A brief presentation going through the process and the highlights of the plan, and then feel free to ask questions along the way or ask after the presentation. Great. So Aaron and Zach, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, I wasn't sure, Zach, if you were going to start, but thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate the opportunity to present to you today, and thank you to all the people that Ray just listed. It's been an enjoyable process for us, and we've come a long way in just the last few months to put together this plan for you. Zach, if you want, you can go ahead and take over with the presentation. Would you like me to share my screen? Nope.
Yeah, I think that'll be best. The other thing that I do want to point out, I think Ray did a fantastic job of congratulating everyone and giving kudos, but I would like to point out that this wouldn't have been done without the support of Ray himself and Mark and their entire staff. They've been fantastic every step of the way, and thank you guys so much for all your hard work and dedication to help us get over the finish line here. So if we look at the presentation, I don't want to undersell it. Once we go to this next screen, this is probably something that you have not seen in the past, but it is a huge Gantt chart, right? I'll wait for Aaron to get there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks like is that being shared locally there with the Planning Commission? I'm happy to share, but I don't have.
It's being shared here. Do you see it online?
Yeah, I'm seeing the front page. I think we're ready for the Gantt chart on the second slide, please.
It might have a lag.
All right.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's catching up to the speed.
Well, while we wait for it to catch up with us, you can see a 7-month period of time. There was a lot jam-packed into it. I mean, I think I did a little bit of math with Aaron earlier today. When we talk about meetings, we had 50+ meetings. We've probably spent 1,000 hours collectively between the steering committee and all of the work that we've done to actually get to this point. You can see this breaks down every task that we've done over the course, and clearly today's the day. The last date that you see is the 27th, so we're really excited to hit that mark. I think Mark and Ray has shared with you guys some updates along the way. How it once we launched, we did some initial research, we did some surveys, provided survey studies. I believe that was shared with you. And then we really digged into the data. We did some, initial data analysis. Then we went into stakeholder workshops in early January, public forum in early January, provided some interim deliverables, and then started to flush those out with some recommendations. And then last week with the draft to the steering committee, and we're here today. So, and not to completely belabor the point, we can go to the next slide.
Can you see that?
I think there may be a lag.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry about this.
We'll just have to let them know we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys are seeing it, that's what's key. If you
Yeah.
guys can see what we're talking about, okay. So for stakeholder engagement, I know that's been mentioned. We conducted a housing needs survey. So this was online and a paper survey that collected data on demographics, housing conditions, affordability, those types of things. As Ray mentioned, we nearly had 1,200 respondents. The survey was published in mid-October and it remained open until the 27th of November. So that was one avenue. Another avenue, we did interviews. 9 individual and small group interviews were conducted in December and in January with various stakeholders, planners, developers, housing authority leaders to understand the challenges and potential solutions that they were seeing. Then we did some workshops. We did 2 workshops that were held in January 9th and January 10th. We had about 26 participants from, again, a diverse section of the community in brainstorming ideas to identify barriers to achieve, common community housing goals. We had a public forum on January 9th, huge turnout, had over 100 residents that participated in person and through Zoom. They shared their experiences and concerns regarding housing in the community. Then once we finished putting together the recommendations with all of the data collected, we did open it up for public comment period. That was late February through about March 14th. The next slide, we dig in just a little bit into some of the data. So everything I mentioned there was stakeholder engagement. On the data side, clearly we needed to take a deeper dive into the demographics and the workforce, population trends, age demographics, industry mix, commuting patterns to understand the local housing market. For the housing stock, we had to take a look at the existing housing stock, the type, the age, the value, the vacancy rates to assess the availability of the quality of housing options. And then we jumped into housing analysis and the demand. Basically, this is where we explored housing affordability, cost burdens, and projected demand for the different housing types based on various factors. And I'll pause there so we can get caught up and to see if there was any questions about stakeholder engagement or the data that we collected.
No, I think we're ready to move on.
Yeah. And also, Aaron and Zach, due to the time lag, I would suggest you go ahead and present as you would, and then we'll just manage the slides accordingly. That might be easiest.
Perfect. Well, you don't have to hear from me much longer. I'm going to cover the key findings. So if you guys can see, so some of the key findings, we found that there was limited affordability. We saw that from survey and forum revealed that there's a lack of affordable housing options, especially in specific demographics like young professionals and seniors. We've also, another key finding, limited housing diversity. Current housing stock heavily favors single family homes, limiting options for those seeking different housing types. We saw that there are some barriers to access. So high upfront costs, occasionally predatory rental practices, and lack of support services that creates challenges for the vulnerable populations that came directly from the public forum. Then on the competitive market side of things, there's low vacancy rates and rising prices. That makes it a little difficult for potential buyers and renters to find suitable housing. Last finding were some public concerns. Participants in both the survey and in the forum expressed concerns about limited public transportation. They also mentioned NIMBYism multiple times, which is not in my backyard. Those types of attitudes, and a need for diverse representation in future planning efforts. Those were really the highlighted key findings that we found from the survey and from the forum. So I'll let Aaron jump into some of the strategic recommendations to try to tackle those.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So what you see in front of you in the next few slides are the kind of high-level summaries of the strategic recommendations. When you do see the final report, we do provide, of course, some additional information, some action steps, some performance metrics, and a couple of other, more detailed information about the recommendations. They're separated into, I think, overall 6 large kind of categories or buckets. The first one is coordinating on regional resources. We know, of course, that when we think about McLean County, that there's multiple jurisdictions, city and town among them, and that coordinating on these resources is really critical, I think, to meeting shared need. So the first recommendation within coordinate regional resources is to establish an intergovernmental housing recovery implementation committee. So what you see with the report here is a set of recommendations, but we do think that taking those steps and taking it off the page and into the community is really critical, and that implementation committee can help bridge that gap. Second, to hire or assign a housing coordinator. Of course, this is just a suggested title, importantly, but we do think that it's important to have a position either created or reassigned to oversee the implementation of housing programs, ensuring that smooth operation and alignment across jurisdictions and overall housing policy that's established by the committee. Next up, we have expand the centralized housing information hub. We think that a single location for information about the county, city, and town housing programs and services all in one place that has multiple access points and is user friendly. Next up, we have develop and host a housing education campaign. Zach mentioned that kind of NIMBYism that can be a barrier in a lot of communities when thinking about housing and affordable housing. And I think a specific housing education campaign can really go a long way, both for the community, but also even elected officials and local leaders to help make sure we're all kind of on the same page and understanding what those needs are. And then also finally, as on this slide, you see extending the position of the Housing Stability Navigator. This is currently a piloted 2-year position with the Mid-Central Community Action Group, and would love to see that extended. I think a lot of great work is being done there. Next up are our zoning. Let me make sure. Yes, the zoning and land use adjustments. First off, just a complete review of all land use ordinances, especially to make sure, again, for that effort of collaboration, that we aren't kind of competing or actually conflicting with each other throughout the jurisdictions, to make sure that we're all on the same page. I think a comprehensive review is a good policy at this point, understanding how much we've come even since post-pandemic and understanding our housing needs. I think the establishment of overlay districts, also a really good recommendation here to identify specific and target specific areas and provide incentives to create the specific types of development within those overlay districts, whether those be mixed use development, transit oriented development, or affordable housing development as well. One thing we'd also recommend here is the development of a policy for inclusionary zoning. Without maybe getting too much in the details, although I'm happy to answer questions about it, inclusionary zoning is either the requirement or the incentivization, I guess is the word, of dedicated affordable units within all new developments. I think a combination of requirements and incentives is kind of the sweet spot for making that work well, and we have seen that be really effective in a lot of the communities that we work with, to leading to actual affordable units being developed. Next up, I have, as part of our zoning and land use adjustments, really attempts to expand the housing mix. As Zach had mentioned, and it's not necessarily uncommon, but what we see throughout the county is a lot of the same kinds of single-family detached housing. I think there's an opportunity to expand that mix to meet a lot of different needs throughout the community there, whether those are first-time home buyers on one side of what I like to call the housing life cycle, or even downsizing seniors on the other side. looking for opportunities to expand and create new opportunities for that mix. There's a couple of strategies throughout the report that you can see, things like accessory dwelling units, smaller single family units, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, that kind of missing middle, if you're familiar with that terminology. Some more recommendations and best practices in the report for those. Our next big bucket here is expanding and maximizing funding opportunities. We'd love to see the establishment of a dedicated affordable housing trust fund, dedicated funding stream to devote to housing needs and affordable housing needs. Also, a couple opportunities we think to advocate for some state level policy adjustments, specifically around economic development. Would love to see housing become a consideration in economic development efforts and kind of incentive packages to make sure that communities are impacted by those great economic development wins are also in a position to best position themselves for housing needs related to them. And finally, recommendation here to support existing land banks and community land trusts. They can work very well together or independently. Really a good opportunity to try to identify and best utilize land, sometimes publicly owned land, for the creation and development of affordable housing. And those are two organizations we've seen really be successful, and we've seen them even be successful, throughout Central Illinois as well. Okay, so finally, I think I'm on to the last slide here. We are looking at more partnership opportunities for preservation and maintenance of existing affordable housing, whether that's market rate or kind of naturally occurring affordable housing, or whether that's kind of dedicated or subsidized units through LIHTC. We want to make sure that we're focused on keeping the affordable housing that we do have in McLean County. So a couple of those options as presented in the report are those partnerships to acquire and rehabilitate existing LIHTC properties, a lot of which are coming out of their affordability period in the next 10 years or so. The development of a Renaissance loan program to help individuals and homeowners keep their house and the existing housing supply up to speed and make sure that things aren't necessarily falling away, giving opportunities for homeowners to keep their homes up to par there. And also talked about the possibility of establishing redevelopment districts or property tax relief programs. Some of those redevelopment districts can be aligned with some of the overlay districts we talked about earlier as well. We love to see some continued and additional support for some permanent supportive housing. We do know a lot of what our report was set out to do was identify the specific needs that are related to the pandemic, and permanent supportive housing is definitely something that's a need in a lot of places, but also in McLean County. And so continued participation with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, as well with their listening sessions to make sure that the region's needs are being met there as well. Also, continuing to develop a coordinated approach and continuing to coordinate with McLean County Behavioral Health Coordinating Council, to secure funding and continue partnership with them. We need to know that housing, I believe, is part of their strategic plan as well. I think there's further opportunities to continue to collaborate in that space. Finally, engaging landlords and employers. One of the really most important things as we understand is that there's no kind of silver bullet, if you will, or one stop kind of fix for all of our housing problems. A lot of different angles and a lot of different small solutions need to be kind of combined to meet our needs here. We think engaging in landlords and employers is a really important thing that's often overlooked. So, I think that employers, we have some really large employers throughout McLean County, and identifying their specific needs and where there might be opportunities to collaborate. We know that they're having a hard time finding housing to meet their workforce where they are. And so I think there's opportunities to combine, maybe adjust. Also promotion, as you see on your slide, of living wage campaigns, just to make sure that what we're seeing as affordable or what is affordable in the community matches up with the idea about what wages are being paid, especially by those major employers, to make sure, again, there is coordination there. And even as housing prices continue to rise, if they continue to do that, that we make sure that wages are responding appropriately. And finally, we have on the slide here what we've identified and recommending some assistance, or at least efforts to collaborate with local landlords. What you see is this landlord risk recovery fund, which helps landlords maybe potentially limit some of the risks that they're concerned about in renting to maybe a wider set of individuals, or maybe some individuals of even lower income or something like that, helping to ensure that there is housing for everyone, but we don't necessarily want to throw landlords under the bus just to make sure there's housing available. So opportunities to collaborate there and help to provide some mitigation for the landlord. And that was very quick. It was a quick summary of all of it. I hope I didn't go too fast or too slow. I know there's a lot left on the agenda today, but did want to pause here first off to say thank you again and open it up for any questions.
Any questions for our consultants in terms of the report? Any comment any of the commissioners would like to make about the report?
Pretty thorough.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to compliment the staff. I think they did, and the consultants. I think they did a very good job at putting a good report together and giving us some opportunities to have others in the community start to implement some of this. So with that said, I would entertain a motion to approve the report as presented.
I would so move.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, if I may just add
Please.
one quick point. So the consultants in the next couple of weeks, like I said earlier, the graphic design team will enhance the graphic design presentation of the document, finalize document, take the word draft out, and put a date that you adopted the plan, things like that. And if there's some graphs that make it easier to read, that type of things. In the next couple of weeks, they will do that, and then we'll have a really nice copy that we'll put on website. We'll share if you like copies. Let me know. We'll definitely have the electronic copies available, and also our plans, staff plans, is to. And thanks, number one, for your adoption, because it carry a lot of weight, and also since it's a regional effort, we are also in the process of trying to find out what would be a good approach model in terms of implementation. And so we're trying to look at other places, something kind of a regional plan implementation model, but also housing, and also given the community characteristics of our community, just see what would be a good approach. But at minimum, Mark has spent a lot of hours and quite lost a lot of sleep on this plan throughout the last 7 months. And I really appreciate and this is the whole team effort. Actually, we have team members from the staff, on different things that you saw that actually did contribute, from flyers to dropping off copies to public libraries to have through the public forum and whatnot, and not to mention for the TPMA. So implementation is on our mind. Just want to let you know. We'll probably do some education after the nice graphic design enhanced copy made. Then we'll probably go to like different maybe public bodies, organizations, to educate them about the plan. And then in terms of the implementation committee, that's included in as one of the recommendations. Through our research, we'll find what will be more appropriate model that we can use and adopt. But we are open to suggestions. If you have experience on other planning efforts on the regional scale, and given what your knowledge of our community, your community, that would work better, please let me know. Yeah, because we don't want to lose the momentum, but we also recognize even like hiring or having a housing coordinator takes money. So we're looking for different sources of funding, potential funding. We also have heard from from folks that while we got the planning grant from the state under the RISE program in Equinum, the state is thinking of maybe they should put some funding for implementation. If that happens, that would help us too. So the plan is adopted. Thank you, everyone. And for staff, it's not the end, but I could also point out that staff, we don't have the capacity to carry the plan forward in full scale for implementation. We have so many major projects that we are engaging right now. But in the transition, in the meantime, we'll be happy to set things up and then work with however the model will be for implementation, just to give you a sense of what's next.
Okay.
Thanks.
If it's appropriate, I have one question. As we now approve this, starting to wrap brain around how we move forward with the whole thing, how will like the county board and the city councils and town council and even the smaller community, boards and representatives, how will they deal with this, or how will they see this? And will that fall on you as the regional planning commission to present this to them, or how does that move forward?
I think in the interim, yes, yeah, in the interim, it's part of from what staff thoughts are like all the education. So we'll, like what we did with the Go Safe action plan. Mark and I probably we've been thinking about it. We'll have a presentation prepared and go into the county board or the committees, relevant committees. We would ask for for the town council, the city council, and for the rural communities. We're thinking of there's a Rural Mayor Association of Mayors from McLean County. They have quarterly meetings. Maybe we can ask for permission to have a presentation for the rural communities. And there are other partners. There's so many, like Connect Transit Board, right? The coalition, the Housing Coalition, McLean County Housing Coalition. There are a lot of different bodies, entities, public agencies, like the Bloomington Housing Authority. That will be another potential organization that we can make a presentation to. The MIRA, the Illinois Realtor Association, with permission of Diane, then we would love to present to their board. To the Landlord Association, we recognize this plan. It takes a lot to implement, and also it's not just a small team of effort. Because it's a community-wide issue, it takes a community-wide engagement for the solution. And so, but in the beginning, I think it's important to have the public, entities to be engaged, including the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. Like housing is one of their top priorities in their mental health action plan. So there are lots of bodies that we already in mind that we would ask for permission to give a presentation. There might be some community organizations, different Rotaries and Kiwanis clubs that we have done previously with the Go Safe action plan. So there are organizations here and there, and we'll be ready. It's more like a circuit rider. From a planning world, we call it circuit riders, who go home to different places and do the presentation. To draw the support of the plan that you just adopted. We've got increase of just last couple of weeks, even from neighborhood residents saying, hey, looking at certain issues, they said, what about us? How that would affect us? So that needs some explanation. And we will engage the mass media also to educate them so that they would help us to educate the public. So that, yeah, a lot of education, it takes time, but without education, it's hard to get people to support any solutions that down the road that we will raise, or whoever the implementation would suggest or would make the job of the housing coordinator and also the stability, housing stability, the navigator easier, when they reach out, ask for support, ask for help. Yeah, I mean, some of you were there at the public forum, standing room only, because people care. Right? And we talk, not just talking about people that got a place to stay tonight, but then they don't have a home, actually. People treat their cars as a home and things like that. So yeah, a lot of work to be done. Yeah.
Great.
What role would like the steering committee play in implementation? Because if you look at those names, I've been to hearings with developers. Some of those people are rolled out consistently to talk, so what role do they play, and has that been discussed?
Yeah. Similar question was asked at our last steering committee meetings. I mean, my answer was, and I'll repeat that, a very good question. It makes sense. And not to really take up a lot of your time. Going back when Mark and I trying to think about who should we invite for the steering committee. I'm going back even that point. We don't want to have like a 30 people, 20-person committee. It's too large. I mean, down to manageable level, but then well represented different sectors. Public, private, non-profit. You're right. And I told the steering committee members at the last meeting that don't be surprised if we invite them, to serve on the implementation committee, because they have gone through so much. And also, it's not just serving on the committee, the steering committee. Through their passion, through their involvement, current involvement outside of the steering committee, but on housing, I mean, they have a wealth of information and knowledge and experience. So, but since we don't have the model how the implementation committee should be set up, I want to hold back and not to say, but then I mentioned to them, don't be surprised if we invite them to be back. And to be honest, yeah, I mean, you see the representation. I won't be surprised that we have many of them back, if not at all, and even expand that, from the steering committee. But good question.
Thank you, Ray. Let's move now on, unless there's any other comments that commissioners would like to make. Let's move on to item C, which Ray is the consideration for approval of the proposed bylaw amendment.
Yeah. Thank you. This is once every 3-year thing that, according to our current bylaws, that staff will review and makes recommendation if any changes that needs to be considered. And if you recall, we asked previously the Regional Planning Commission members if any suggestions, and we did receive one proposal from one of the members from the commission, and staff reviewed that. And also along we reviewed the current, not the proposed, but the current bylaws, and there were a few minor things need to be updated. So we put together a draft. We took it to the executive committee for the consideration last week, and there was some discussion, some minor changes to what was presented to them. But as you recall seeing in the packet that we sent out to you all, it was the primary change is in terms of the election procedure steps. And if you probably have read it already, it's on page 1 under Article 3, Section 2, in terms of procedure when we do the nomination, the election of officers in the beginning of each year, the first meeting of each year. And so there's some proposed change, and as indicated by deletion and the addition align the wording. And so basically it's is to clarify the steps. And I not to put you on the spot. If Mr. Burrell, if any comments you want to make, that's fine. Hi, Mr. Commissioner Burrell was the one who made the made the suggestions. This he's been on the
The previous version of the bylaws said we would elect people based on who got the most nominations. And I just thought that was an incorrect use of the words, and it should be changed to which of the nominees get the most votes is who we elect. So that's the basis of it.
Yeah.
And there was something in there about using paper ballots, and we've learned since, I just learned today that that is not allowed by law. So it has to be a voice vote.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
It's a pretty simple change.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so thank you. So the version that you received in the packet was the version that was recommended by the executive committee last week.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? If not, I entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right. Great. We're now on to the adoption of the updated records retention policy.
Sure. If I may also ask Mark too, for item D and E, I mean, up to Mr. Chairman, you want to take it separately, probably appropriate, but Mark's going to give an overview, background for these two items, and then maybe we can vote separately.
Do we need to vote too?
Probably each, maybe for the record, maybe.
Okay.
If you
Do
don't
it separately. Okay.
So these are two internal updates to two what would be considered HR policies. One is an update, and that is an update on the record retention policy, and the other one is a new establishment for procurement policy to take firm steps regarding small and minority-owned businesses. And this is coming from the most recent CDBG monitoring that we did with the City of Bloomington to review for the 23-24 program year. And the city had advised us that there were two policies that were not necessarily a finding, but needed some improvement based on federal guidelines. So it was just a simple copy and paste and making sure everything looked right. But we're just trying to adhere to those federal regulations so that HUD purposes alone. So happy to answer any questions, but it's pretty straightforward.
Question for Mark? Okay, if there are no further discussions, I would take a motion to adopt the updated record retention policy to meet the community development block grant regulations under item D.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Moving on to regular agenda, letter E, the consideration of the adoption of updated procurement policy with affirmative action or confirmative step. I assume that means confirmative action steps to meet community development grant regulations. Can I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you. Second? Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we're on to discussion items, regional housing initiative update. Mark, do you have anything?
Yes. So for local updates, MCRPC staff hosted the quarterly Regional Housing Initiative Affordable and Supportive Housing Committee meeting. We also completed the annual update to the Housing Data Dashboard using Tableau on the MCRPC website. That is available on our website. Feel free to check it out on your own leisure. We also met with the City, Town, and Bloomington Housing Authority staff on the consolidated plan to discuss and plan the release of our community feedback survey for that consolidated plan. That survey will be open starting April 2nd that's next week, and we're going to close it on August 31st. It's going to be available, I believe, on our website, but that's specifically for the consolidated plan for CDBG. And that stands for the Community Development Block Grant. I'm sure everyone's aware. For Regional Housing Recovery Plan updates, most of which has been already covered, but just want to make sure call out since our last meeting, MCRPC received 22 public comments on the Regional Housing Recovery Plan during the public review period, which was February 29th to March 14th. Mostly positive, some constructive criticism, a couple naysayers, but mostly positive and good positive comments. And then we also had the steering committee met 3 times. We were very busy this month, finalizing the housing plan based on committee member feedback and edits. And then we also submitted the RISE reports to DCEO for monthly reporting. And then staff also looked for best practices for future implementation of the adopted plan, which also included, of course, reaching out to the city of Rockford regarding their successes on homelessness, addressing homelessness. And then other participated in the monthly Invest Health meeting and completed the grant application for the Invest Health Cities 4.0 collaboration grant. That group has prioritized housing as one of the main social determinants of health, and also gathered housing and business data for the forthcoming McLean County Regional Comprehensive Plan. So that is up for the last month. So
Questions for Mark?
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Francesca, I understand you're going to update us on the human services transportation plan.
We're gonna try this again. See how it goes. I have just a couple slides, few slides to go over. But to give you an idea of where we're at with the planning process, this is a little flow chart. And the red star is where we are at. So kind of in between the goal setting, but before the public comment period. So since we last met a couple weeks ago, we had our Region 6 Joint Committee meeting on March 18th. This was a hybrid event at the Pontiac Courthouse. And this was at Pontiac because it's a 5-county region plan. So Ford, Iroquois, Livingston, Kankakee, and McLean counties. So we meet in Pontiac to have a more central location for now. The purpose was to reconvene our policy and technical committees to give them an update about where we're at with updating the plan, and then receive status updates from the service providers of the local agencies. And then the attendees are representatives from a lot of different agencies. And then also on March 18th, we had our virtual town hall. This was an event we were hoping to grab more people for than just 11 participants based on the outreach and the promotion that we did of the event. But we were still happy with the conversations and the information that was able to be shared. So we did an overview of the planning process, and then we had poll questions and an open discussion. And thanks, Katie, for coming and supporting us. That was great. It was a good event. We had good discussions, and I think one of the main things that we pulled from this was there's a lack of awareness about the available services right now. We have people who are enjoying the services, but the main thing is like there's a lot of people who need them that are just not aware that they're there. So moving on to our survey highlights. So we had 2 surveys. The first one we'll go over is the service providers. This also did not get as much feedback as we were hoping. We were looking for about 9, but we only received 2 responses. So some highlights from that were that these providers are providing service during weekday business hours. They cite improvements that needed for it to enhance coordination, more available vehicles, more capacity for coordinating with other agencies, and more funding. And challenges they're currently facing are, again, funding, service area size, liability issues, regulations, and scheduling and dispatching. So although we only got a couple responses, we were able to engage with the service providers in other ways throughout the whole planning process. So they were completely missed.
Question on the liability issues. Is that having access to liability protection, or is that rising situations occurring?
I think it comes with their ability to coordinate with sharing vehicles. They're not really able to do that with insurance and regulations of how they operate, but it's something that's strongly suggested to enhance the services that they can provide. And moving on to our community member survey. So we've got 2 pie charts. The one on your left is we're looking at the geographic locations of our respondents. The most came from McLean and Livingston counties, but we did have respondents from all 5 counties. And then on the right is our special populations that the plan looks to address the needs of. So we had the most representation from seniors at 43%, and then individuals with disabilities at 38%, and individuals with low income at 35%. And lower was just veterans at 4%. Some of the highlights from the committee member survey, when asked how they typically get around, the most common response was public transit and rides from family and friends. They're using transportation services for healthcare and for shopping, most popular answers. And improvements that would increase their use of transportation services are more weekend and evening services that go to places they want to go, and then more information and a better familiarity with the transit system. So that kind of goes back to our virtual town hall forum, kind of that lack of awareness and information about what's there. If people are more comfortable, they might be using the services more. So for our next steps, we will begin the 30-day public comment period very soon, end of this week or next week. And then we will move on after that's completed to the approval by our Region 6 committee. And so, any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Carl, can I
Yes.
just briefly jump in
Please.
because of what work has been done? As I think some of you know, I've been working on this Region 6 project for many years now. But in this current effort, I have to say that a huge amount of the work and a lot of the concentration and creativity have come from Tanya Barreto, who is downstairs running the live stream, and from Francesca Lewis, who is sitting here. They have worked incredibly hard. They have done a lot of really interesting things in terms of outreach and figuring out how to get the word out. We have ongoing work to do once we get our new plan in place. And we are in constant discussion with IDOT about how to pursue that. And I certainly hope to be able to rely on Tanya and Francesca to continue the amazing support they've given really to this process all along. Just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Good.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good job, guys.
Now, Ray, the Vision Zero update.
Yes. So particularly regarding the waste grant, the request for proposal, we will be posting on county website this week. And we're working with IT to have that done, and the county administration will be also putting an ad in the newspaper to get the word out. More importantly, we will be reaching out to some potential consultancies, letting them know, that it's on the website and they can look, to response. Hopefully, we'll be allowing a window of about 1 month, for the response. It's not unusual, usually at least 3 to 4 weeks, for the response. To a little bit more detail level than what you might have heard as like a request for qualifications, where they just slap some resumes together. But if request for proposal is more specific to the project, and so we are giving a window so that we hope to get responses by the end of April, and then we'll have the selection of consultants the first part of May. That process going on. So just want to give you a heads up. Moving along, well, as fast as we would like, but the issues that are our control. But so it's there. Yep.
Is there anything more that needs to come before the committee today before the adjournment? Okay. If not, there's no objection, I'll just declare us adjourned. Thank you very much for doing this and being here today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's his name?